know that this is the point in time in which we'll begin live streaming, and there's about a 14-20 second delay. So I will do my best here to play a little bit of Jeopardy theme song and move on. So, Joe, are we up and going?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, very good. So, if you haven't been able to join us in person this evening, we're happy that hopefully that you're checking in with us via the live stream on YouTube. And so this is rather new for the Board of Education, but we're excited to keep moving forward on these and other issues. So again, welcome. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight, and we look forward to hopefully meeting you in person sometime, or for you to continue streaming and watching the work that your board is engaged in. Okay, so consent agenda items. You see those before you, items A through E. I would look for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Lorelei.
Second.
Thank you, Lori. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, the consent agenda is adopted as presented. And we move on to recognition of difference makers. Dr. Linscomb?
Absolutely. Would like to just touch on one thing that we're starting to do. We've had at different times, we've had different folks that we've recognized at our board meetings that have made an impact on what we do through our school system and connecting with folks. And we've had some students here in the past few months that have came and presented. It's always great to see our students when they're in action, whether it's through a speech or debate or something along that lines. And so anyway, we just want to continue that, and it's something starting in the recognition to recognize difference makers. We have 1,478 employees district-wide, and we have 1,478 difference makers. And for us to get to the next level and to become a premier school district, it's going to take all of us working together. So we just want to recognize some. Tonight I have a couple that some different individuals we want to recognize, have just a card. We just like to present them, but to publicly thank them for making a difference. We got a lot of folks. If you're here in the room, you're making a difference. Board of Education making a difference, making sure we're connecting with kids and the community as we move forward. So I'd like to start out. I'd like to just share a little bit, and then I'll ask them to come forward, and then I just would like to recognize them publicly. So Sarah Greitland, okay, we'd like to recognize her. She's with our parents as teachers, has done this for 21 years. Is that correct, Sarah? Okay, and she has been a difference maker, and we've known that, hearing some interesting stories and what they've done. But there was a situation where she connected. There was a car accident by a family, an unfortunate situation, and the child working through the coping of that. Moving forward, and just the trauma of that, and how she made a difference. Thank the Tribune for making us aware. There was an article in there and made us aware. So she made a difference. We want to publicly thank her in that child's life, that family's life, and as a community. So Sarah, if you'd come forward, and I'd like to recognize you and present you with this. On behalf of the Board of Education and as a school district, we just want to tell you thank you for making a difference, and everything you do. I won't ask you to give a speech or anything.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to share, or not to put you on the spot, but I did, so I don't do that. So we'll just say thank you for what you do and making a difference in the child's life.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sure. Taking my shades.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. And we have some other folks?
We do.
Okay.
We had here in the last, was it 2 weeks ago, there was a block party, and there were some individuals that made this happen. I know this is the second annual block party, is that correct? Yep. I've been fortunate to be able to go the last 2 years. I'd like to recognize 3 folks that had an integral part of that. The principal, Dr. Ryan Day, in his first year as principal at East Elementary. Ryan, if you just want to show a hand there, I'll recognize you here shortly. And then Bo Underwood and Vivian Murphy from the First Christian Church. And their involvement, they have a true partnership with East Elementary, and they've just been, it was a truly, I don't know, how many folks, do we know how many folks came this year to the block party?
575.
But who's counting, right? Okay, so that is awesome. 575 that otherwise who knows what they might have been doing. So just involving, we talk about being stronger together and having close to 600 folks come out there to East Elementary. So the leadership there at the East Elementary with Dr. Day, and then both Bo and Vivian, your guys' involvement with that and making that happen, taking it from last year and building on it, and looking forward to next year. So would like to recognize the 3 of you individually. And just thank you on behalf of the board and our community of being a difference maker. Oh, card here for you. Thank you. Vivian, thank you very much. Good day. Thank you. There we go. So, we'll do a picture.
Yeah, if I could just lift up if Casey and Sarah could join us. Casey was one of our
Yes.
co-organizers. She also happens to
Absolutely.
be my wife, so I want to
Okay.
make sure she gets recognized. And Sarah, our associate minister, fills that huge role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you to all of you guys. There we go. Thank you guys very much.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right. And Larry, if I could, I was able to go this year, missed last year, but, and I know you stopped by. The amount of energy that was at that block party was just really amazing. I mean, it was great to see so many different families and community members and different organizations really kind of come together and put such a great event on. I mean, it was a really exciting evening. And you could tell there was a lot of good positive energy coming out of that block party. So again, thanks for doing that for our kids and for our eSchool families. Just very appreciative of that. Thank you guys.
Steve, I just want to mention, we had 100 volunteers from our church, so that's pretty amazing.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Yes.
Please
Yeah.
take back our thanks. Take back our thanks to those volunteers. To say
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we go.
Okay, all right, moving on. So reports and communications. And Mr. Aubuchon is up first, our facilities committee update, and Rich is the chair, so we ask that he bring us an update tonight.
As part and parcel of the contract that we have with NAPOLS, one of the things that has developed is a necessary part of construction. That's an insurance issue that has popped up. And what we have seen, at least in the research that Jason has been able to do, and as well with Larry, is to find, if at all possible, some savings associated with that insurance. So we had conducted a meeting, if we could, to try and develop maybe a discussion around the insurance that we would normally carry. What we thought was so important for us was, here we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars, millions at least, not hundreds, but it's incumbent upon us to save money where we can. And one of those was in regard to an insurance program known in the industry as a wrap-up program. And so what Jason had done, and I think is very unique for this type of program, is to try and push the fold, so to speak, on the program known as CSIP and OSIP, and we'll get into that with some slides that he has. But I think if you take some time to take a look at potential savings that he can reap with this, I think it's well worth our time. In just an initial discussion that we had just last week, what we've discovered is there's a potential for some six-figure plus savings with this type of program. Everyone has to buy this insurance that we have when they come on the site anyway. I do believe that whatever process that we go down the road, we're going to receive some sort of savings. It's something that we would do anyway, in our construction projects. And I hope that whatever process that we choose, whether it be an owner-controlled process or whether a contractor-controlled process, is one that will help encourage smaller vendors who normally wouldn't be able to comply with the requirements that we would demand of them here in Jefferson City, be able to do some more work here, and hopefully encourage more people that might be local to do this work. And I don't want to take too much thunder away from Jason and Larry, but this program that we're talking about tonight has not been done that we know of anywhere else. That doesn't necessarily mean it hasn't been done in the construction industry. What Jason will tell you is that it hasn't been done in a school-offered setting. So what? This isn't necessarily new. We are going to be innovative. It is part of risk-taking that is also calculated to make sure that we save money where we can. This isn't new to the industry. Okay, so we're not breaking new ground necessarily, but this program that Jason's going to go through is something that we would pay for anyway. We're hoping, if at all possible, within the next 6 weeks, to come up with a way to save some money. With that, Jason, I'll leave it off to you.
Rich did a really good job, and just wanted to first talk about what he called a wrap-up program. And it's a different concept. Like he said, I don't believe there's been any schools in Missouri that have done this, but there have been a lot of big projects. Pretty much $100 million is a threshold where this makes sense, and so ours is right there and a little above. So I think it makes a lot of sense for us. But you take a single insurance program that covers the whole job, and it's for workers' compensation, general liability, and excess liability. And so it covers us as the owner, the construction manager, and then all tiers of subcontractors. And what generally happens is when we bid this out, every contractor and subcontractor, they have workers' compensation, general liability, and excess general liability. And that's built into their bid. And so when they come and bid their line of work, it's their product, it's their labor, and then the cost of their risk or their insurance. And so I'd never heard of this. It didn't seem to make sense to me, but in the industry, they can go and exempt our project from their insurance, and they get a credit back from their insurance company. So instead of bidding labor, goods, products, and risk, we've taken the risk off the table, and we're taking that on. And so it levels the playing field so that we're only buying labor and products. So why would we want to do this? You get a policy limit dedicated to our project. Instead of having 40 subcontractors who all have different limits and they may not have adequate limits, we know that we have the right limit for us. We get to develop the terms and conditions that we want. We know that we have the proper terms and conditions that cover all the enrolled contractors of all tiers. So they're all paid by one company, so that reduces litigation between carriers. So if we have somebody who has a claim and he's saying, no, it's not my fault, it's this person's fault. So now we have two different insurance companies going against each other. So in that case, you could have disputes that would delay our project. So that's not the case. We have one insurance carrier that's paying all the claims. So should reduce any cross litigation because there's nobody else to sue. It's one carrier covering everything. And then Rich mentioned this, that there's opportunity for additional local contractor participation, because if you're a small contractor, you probably don't have high enough limits to work on a job of this size anyway. And then maybe your insurance costs are higher because you're smaller. So when you take that off, I mean, they may do great work, but you take that risk piece off the table, they're now able to compete against anybody. So that's when you talk to people, the experts, I think they say the coverage is the most important benefit that you get. You get adequate coverage. But then we also believe there's significant savings that can be had. So volume buying, once again, you have a small subcontractor who's bidding on your job, they're bidding that in the cost of their bid. You take that out, so our volume buying, we think, will get a better rate. Eliminating duplicate coverage. They're all coming in with their own products and then probably over covering each other. So you probably have too much insurance under the other plan. And then the big thing is controlling losses by having safety. So whichever plan we decide, if it's a general contractor, they're going to have a safety person on board, making sure they have a safety manual and everybody's complying with that, instead of having each of the contractors with all their own different safety products. So improved safety equals reduced losses, which that's where the really big savings comes from. So one of the vendors that's been talking to me for a long time about this gave me an example, and this was the example, sorry, the highlighter doesn't work, but the $320 million example is, so it's a hard cost, a construction project that was $320 million. I took that and ratioed it down to our $100 million project. So they were saying on the $320 million project, contractors their insurance would be 9.9, almost $10 million. If you do the same ratio, ours would be about $3.1 million. So when you buy the insurance, you have premium that you pay, and then you also have deductibles that you pay. And so that $2.859 million is the maximum cost if you've paid all your premiums and you met all your deductibles all the way, because there are two different types of deductibles, same way as your health insurance. You have a deductible and then a maximum out of pocket. So you have a specific deductible and an aggregate deductible. And so you have to hit several specific deductibles, and once you hit so many, your aggregate is the total out of pocket. So that $2,859,000 is the worst case scenario. You paid all your premiums and you had so many losses that you hit your aggregate deductible. So they're saying you should expect a savings of more than $200,000 just from the things that we talked about. And then when you get into savings, so it kind of worked. Of that $2.859 million in total cost, $1,335,000, see that next number down? That is the aggregate loss fund. So that was showing, so there's, if you didn't have any claims, you would save the $248,000 plus the $1.3 million, so you would save $1.5 million. But if you had, so the national average of claims on a project is 50%. So if you had 50% of the $1.3 million, you only had 50% in losses. Plus the $948,000, you would save $900,000. So there's no guarantee that we're going to get that. We think that worst case scenario will save money. We think we'll get better coverage. So we really think that a wrap-up of some kind is the right plan for us.
We don't want anyone to get hurt. I mean, but not having insurance to offset the risk to ensure that individuals taken care of is unacceptable. We're going to have insurance.
Right.
Doesn't matter, of course, whether we pay through NABOLs or through ourselves. It's worth chasing the money here.
And this is normally a hidden cost that we don't see. A subcontractor gives us a bid of X dollars, and within that, this cost is already in there. This will be something that we will know at this time, and we will know the contractor credits that they all receive also, so we'll know how it worked out at the end.
So that's a good point. This is adding transparency, adding openness to
Oh,
this part of
absolutely.
of the purchasing process.
But not nefarious on the part of
Right.
NABOLs by any means. I mean, this is
Absolutely
just a
not.
matter of business that they assume 100% loss because that's their exposure.
Sure.
And so you pay for that.
Right.
Right.
So then there are two types of wrap-ups Rich mentioned. So you have an OSIP, which is an owner-controlled insurance program, or a CSIP, which is a contractor-controlled. And so I'm hearing arguments from both sides. The contractor-controlled, talking to Nabholz, they do this all the time. They have a company that they work with. They already have safety people on board. They say you need to do it with us. We'll take all the administrative overhead off of you. We get even better buying power than you would get. So they have a compelling argument. And then for the owner controlled, the people that are selling those products say, well, of course they want it because there's all that savings from the mitigating your losses. So we don't know which one of these two avenues we want to go down. We're investigating, but just bringing everybody up to speed that this is what we've been working on. Any questions?
So you've negotiated this as a matter of point in the contract. The NABOLs, they've agreed to it.
The contract says that unless otherwise stipulated, they are going to provide a CSIP. So, but it's in there that we have the ability to run an OSIP.
And we think in the next 6 weeks.
Right.
That we'll be able to develop.
And we already have pricing from Nabholz, so we know what that side is like. It's just trying to now get what does it look like on the other side.
I have two questions. One is, we have to decide in enough time that the first round of bids include the correct information. So do we really have 6 weeks?
I think so. I think.
Okay. The next is, if this is novel, do the insurance companies that are local contractors or subs would be using, are they familiar enough with it that they would actually give the credit to the subs?
So Nabholz mentioned it at the contractor summit that they had, and so I'm sure they're going to be working with the subs, because it is probably not anything some of our smaller local subs have worked through, but they're going to help them through that process, which may be another reason to have Naples do this, because it's something that they do regularly.
Could be another reason to try to narrow that 6-week window as well.
Right. And we'll do the best we can.
Okay.
But ultimately, a board decision. So that's-
Absolutely.
That's why we want to bring it to the attention of the board. That's why we had the facilities committee to discuss the issue before we got it to here, so it wasn't hitting you cold. But it's worthwhile.
And we have a couple of very large insurance brokers that are out in the market right now, and they're working on this for us. So they're two different brokers working on this for us.
And
They do it regularly.
have we looked at what their performance has been?
We do have that.
We have 5 years of claim history from them. That's what the OSIP folks needed. So we've collected that and sent that to the market.
And do they look pretty good then, their, the 5-year span?
I don't know really how to evaluate it.
Tough to quantify that.
Yeah, it's tough to say because it's all a matter of severity. I mean, you could have one incident that's very big,
Right,
so, but I don't think it's out of the normal.
okay.
Additional questions for Jason? Follow up?
I think it's definitely worth spending the time. Jason and Larry have brought something I think that's worthwhile for the board to consider. It may ultimately mean that we stay with Naples, but I think it's important for us to do our due diligence to make sure we make that right decision. If we have the potential to save $200,000 to $900,000, why wouldn't we?
But that has to be decided before we actually do any,
One could submit a bid with and without insurance. That would give you absolute transparency. That also creates a little burden on those who do bidding. But I think we'll be able to get to this a little faster.
And I think with the architects, as they develop bid documents, knowing we're going to use one of these, so they need to be bidding without, and I think that helps. So I don't know that we need action, but just,
And there's some tail associated with an owner-controlled program as well. I mean, we would be managing things well after the project was done,
right.
which is dedicating Jason's resources and his staff's resources well beyond the term of finishing construction, which lends itself to having a contractor control program. So, but at the end of the day, all these things are something that we're going to have to consider, but we didn't want to just give it to you cold.
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Appreciate the diligence.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Chief of Learning update, Dr. Brian Schindler.
Thank you. Well, it was a good day of learning. You already know that today was kids, and we had a full day of professional development. We had, I think, 10 consultants who flew in with HMH and were scattered throughout the district, and those buildings that chose not to do that had designed their own PD wrapped around their building's improvement plan, and so got out and visited almost every building, and there was some good stuff going on. I will say, though, that prior to this morning happening, there was a team of community members who made the decision that they wanted to support your school district and to tell teachers that they appreciated them. So as early as 5:30 this morning, there was a team of 170 community members who got together, and they set out to visit all 18 sites. And here's what they accomplished. 170 community volunteers from Concord Cares. It's a group out of Concord Baptist. They scoured our school district, and they served us 650 cups of coffee, 1,920 bottles of water, 812 containers of juice, and 2,052 donuts. There were multiple members of Concord Cares at every school who greeted teachers and gave them a donut and some juice and told them that they cared about them, that they appreciated them. And I think that's important to you because, folks, that's 170 community members who said, we support your school district, and that's a big deal. And so
That's huge.
It's a very, very big deal. So then I was visiting schools, and I just happened to walk into Morrow Heights, and as I was getting ready to go in the gymnasium, in walked John Nelson. John Nelson is the pastor over here at Soma, and he had a large box. He's a large guy, and he had a large box carrying in. That looked really heavy. He and his wife, Heather, and their children came in, and they had heard at the end of last week, they had heard that the teacher's microwave at Morrow Heights was on the brinks at the end of the week, and so the school admits they didn't have time to submit it as a work order to be looked at. John's family heard about it. He spoke to his community members at Soma, and they put in the money and they purchased them a red and black microwave oven, delivered it, and the staff was ecstatic. It was just a great gesture. Again, it is just proof that we have community members that love this district and want the best for this district. So it's exciting to watch that kind of support happening today. All right, I want to give you an update about some of the work that's happening out of the HR department. Shelby's been working with Brenda to shore up some of the processes that we have in place. The responsibilities out of the HR office is to identify potential employees, to recruit them, to hire them, and to support them once they get here. And so what Shelby is doing is working on improving those processes. She's doing that by developing a better process to recruit people aggressively, to hire them efficiently, and to develop them appropriately. She's doing that by looking at, so when it comes time for us to identify the people that we want as part of the school district, where are we going to go to recruit them? When are we going to go? What are we looking for when we go? And so she's working on those processes and timelines to do that. We know things like there are a lot of graduates, they graduate in January from the education department. And what some districts do is they get out and do recruiting in January. They identify the top performing students that come out of the universities, and they offer them a letter of intent and say, if you'll take this letter of intent and come work for us, we'll promise you a job in the fall. And so it's one way to recruit high-end people. And so those are the kinds of process that she's working in, is how do we recruit the best of the best to get into our district. Then once we identify those, she's working on the processes for how do we get that in front of you to make those approvals quicker, how do we get that process moving, how do we get a contract in their hands, and just get the whole process of onboarding them more efficient. And then again, once we get them here, what are we going to do to develop them? And so one of the things we're doing as a team is looking at we have what we call Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, which is Year 1, Year 2, and Year 3 of our new employees, and the support structure that we have to onboard them in Year 1 and then support them as they're with us. And so we're working on getting feedback from our new staff about the processes we used over the last couple years and whether those are effective. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and so we're going to work on improving those processes, providing them the things that they really need before they get into the classroom, and then what things can wait and we can support them once they get teaching and later on. Because one of the things we hear from our new staff members is we spend a whole week with them before they even see kids, and what they report back is pretty overwhelming. I just want to go get into my classroom. I just want to know who my kids are. I just want to see the list. I want to get my chairs in. So we're listening, and we're trying to improve those processes. And just want you to be aware of it. And we'll bring those changes to you as we develop those. The other piece is the evaluation system. Shelby's done a lot of work with our evaluation system. Already put some things in place with the teacher evaluation system. And the goal has been to simplify that process, to get teachers more involved in what that system looks like, but also to get principals in classroom and having conversations with teachers more frequently, as opposed to just go in a couple times a year and watch a lesson and then determine the evaluation system. So we're working on those processes to engage in more conversations along the way so we can ensure that our evaluation system is more accurate. She's also working on creating some evaluation systems for those pools of people that the teacher evaluation system just doesn't apply to, like SLPs and counselors and librarians. And so she's working to get those evaluation systems in place, principals, those kinds of jobs. And then also directors. We haven't had a great system for evaluating our directors, and so we're going to get one created, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you soon and show you what that looks like. So questions about the evaluation system and the work that's happening in HR?
Question.
Yeah.
How does that interface with DESE? Because I know a couple of years ago, DESI came down saying we needed to be more rigorous in our evaluations with our teachers, and they came down. We made some changes, and then the fidelity, I question. When you start tinkering with something, it messes up the fidelity of that instrument. So how, what you're described, how does that interface with DESI and with their requirements on teacher evaluation?
We're taking we are using their system, so we are not straying from DESI's standards by which teachers should be evaluated or the process by which they're recommending. They really give districts two choices. One is to follow their exact system of evaluation, or to go outside of it and use a model that was designed by MU. We've decided to stay with the DESI model, so we use their standards and we follow their process for evaluation. In terms of how often we visit with teachers, how we set those goals, how many goals we have, we are following the DESI model. We're not straying from that.
So they're pretty much guidelines.
They're
that they
guidelines.
give. Okay.
Yes, they give you flexibility.
Right, okay.
But we go with their evaluation standards. Good question.
I think to follow up to your point is, it's important, I think, overall that we keep in mind that, I've never seen an employee evaluation system that's impervious, that it's just top quality. No matter what tool or instrument you use, there's always an issue or questions about them. My thought is, our staff can either view these things as something that's done to them or something that's done with them. And I think in the past that we've all heard that's been the concern, is it's been more something that's been done to them as opposed to a collaborative process where they're growing, they have an opportunity to participate and give their own input into that. And so, I think anytime you move, like we did a year or two ago that you referenced, from a system that we're all familiar with to something that was a much more of a growth model, that when you have someone that's done their job for 15 years and has gotten consistent marks over the last many years, and you're kind of changing that, then have to make sure that that's a collaborative process. But it sounds like that's exactly what you guys are doing, and I think that's the much needed changes.
Yeah, so this year, DESI provides us a list of the standards by which you should be evaluating teachers. So this year, what we did in the past, we pretty much at the district level chose those indicators and said, these are the indicators we think are the most important. These are the ones that we're going to come in and we're going to observe and look for improvement on. This year we started the transition after talking with NEA and MSTA. We are transitioning back to where DESI would like is that the teachers have input in terms of and when you look at the list of standards, which ones apply to me? They should be different for you than they are for you. And that is what DESI model is. And so we're headed in that direction.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
So this year, the district only chose one indicator, and the other indicators are chosen at the building level. Next year, we will not select any at the district level. We'll submit all those. Ask the building and the teachers to select 2 or 3.
Additional questions for Brian?
I like what you just described, because each of our buildings is slightly different, and a one-size-fits-all model doesn't work for everyone.
So if I can give you an update on curriculum writing very quickly, we are getting that ramped up. We're going to, remember last year we were writing science, and so we're in year 2 of science, and we're getting geared up to do the science pilot. The plan is that we will pilot 2 different companies. One will start here in a couple weeks from October up to Christmas break, and then when we come back from Christmas break, we will pilot the second company. We hope to bring recommendations by the teachers, from the teachers, sometime in April for your review on the science resource. Okay. We have, then on top of the science curriculum, we have 10 non-core curriculum that we are going to begin. We're going to start this year, so we'll get that process started next week. We'll bring those teachers in, we'll train them on the rigor relevance framework, how to design curriculum, and we'll get them started with on those 10 non-core curriculum. Remember, we do 1 core every year and then multiple non-core in addition to that. So we have 10 of those. Then we have 3 U.S. History, Government, and Media Productions that we didn't get finished last year. We're going to wrap those up this year. So we hope to bring those to you in April for recommendation for revised curriculum as well. With that, I would like just to make a comment that your curriculum department is new this year, what it looks like. You have We have Mr. Sloyce and Mrs. Ross, who oversee 3 curriculum coordinators. And then to write curriculum, we rely heavily on our classroom teachers. They come out of the classroom, they spend time with us at Dix Road, and they are the ones that write curriculum. And then we go into the whole piloting process like we'll do with science. That's different for some people, that process. You now have a curriculum department that has the resources and the people who can invest the time to review resources and review curriculum and audit the curriculum to make sure that it's right before we bring it to you. That's a good thing. But I want you to hear that not everybody likes change. Not everybody likes change. And so for some people, it'll look as though there's more control over this process, that in the past where we might have just said, we don't have a team of people to do the audit, we don't have a team of people to review the resources, we would have just thrown it out there, and there would have been just a few people maybe looked at it, made a decision, came back and said, this is what we've decided, let's just go with it. And that's just not the process that we're using. We believe in the process, and the process is that you put really smart people in front of the resources and the product, and you audit and you get it right before you put it in the hands of teachers. And I'm only saying it because I think you'll probably hear from some people who are frustrated by that process going slower or feeling as though they don't have as much control as what they used to have. The curriculum department is not interested in having control. The curriculum department is interested in having a process that's right and getting you the right curriculum and the right resources for you to approve to put in the hands of teachers. That is the only intent. We welcome conversations around these topics. We welcome teachers to come in and meet with us and talk through anyone who isn't feeling as though they have a voice. We welcome those voices, and I just want you to hear that tonight. That process is designed to get the right product in the hands of teachers so that we prepare kids when they leave us. We need to do that. So I just felt I needed to say that. So any questions about that process?
I have a
Rich?
question. What's your response from teachers on that? I mean, if this is relatively new, and of course the approach being new, change being what it is for most folks, how is that being addressed at the teacher level?
So we've been communicating through newsletters that go out to staff that basically explain the process, who the coordinators are, what the process looks like, and explain to them, here's the next 3 years timeline for which content areas are going to get written and the process. We've done that. We've sent that out. But I can tell you from the feedback that we've gotten or from the concerns that we've heard, we're not doing a good enough job with our communication piece. We need
It's fair to
get
say
better.
that there's always room for improvement.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But we're trying to, we have a regular newsletter that comes out from the curriculum department to teachers that explains, here's what we've accomplished and here's where we're moving forward. So we do that, but we need to get better at getting some other people on board to ensure that, for example, principals know what's going on, so they're having conversations with their teachers and the teams. So we can get better at communicating. We can, and we're working on that.
I think you guys have put some things in place here just even recently, right? In terms of being able to filter up, comments or suggestions or concerns. I mean, you've spoken before about the faculty council, and I think, I don't know if you're touching on that later.
I am.
But, okay, so.
You're good.
Hear a little more detail there, not to steal your thunder, but, so, that's an important aspect to it. It's just making sure that we're listening from top to bottom, and especially in an organization as large as ours with as many diverse staff as we've got across buildings. I mean, that, like Pam pointed out before, is that every building's a little bit different. Their own climate and culture, then, it's important. So, but again, it sounds like you guys are aware of that, so.
Yeah.
And I truly like having it completed before it comes to the board, that having the board approve something that's not completed.
We won't do that.
Right.
And I like the auditing part.
Absolutely,
If it's not working, we shouldn't be using it.
That's right.
I bit my tongue earlier when we rushed to approve our curriculum this year. And I don't think that was necessarily a fault of anybody in this room, but that said, I do appreciate that you always are improving upon that. It's important to see that there's change that we're making, but also that you can improve on. I think that's a great quality to lead.
Well, it's also important to note, though, even though we bring it to you and you approve it and it's a final product and we put it in the hands of teachers, we're always and we're always getting feedback from them about, for example, the Go Math. We get regular feedback from teachers about when we're doing it, the way we've organized it. So we're always making small changes. We're not changing anything that's board approved, but we're always trying to accommodate teachers in terms of when it's taught, how it's taught, the resources they need, those types of things.
Well, I think a consistent comment that we've all heard on one time or another in the past is that there wasn't that feedback loop present, that the professional development or the curriculum that had been handed wasn't necessarily what they expected, or they were concerned that it wasn't working for them in their buildings or in their classrooms, and that feedback loop just somewhere it wasn't getting to the folks that it needed to get to, and so that the changes weren't necessarily being made in a nice consistent manner. So what they saw coming back around was, hey, we made improvements where we needed to make them. But it sounds like I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but you guys are aware of those things, and you're making much stronger efforts going forward. To Rich's point, I don't think anyone in this room or in this administrative team is responsible for those things, but it's a mark of a good leadership team that you don't waste time worrying about or admiring the problem. You work it, and you do what you can to move forward and improve things. So
I just think,
Thank you.
just
Ben,
publicly,
did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I especially appreciate knowing that you're making changes and what those changes are, because when you do hear things in the community or, from staff, it's a lot easier to be supported if you can speak from some knowledge of what is going on. So it doesn't sound like you're just passing the buck, but
Sure.
rather that you can reinforce the positive aspects.
and here's what we say, we do not want to pass the buck. That's been going on too long. I want you to hear publicly, if you have teachers that come to you or community members that come to you that have concerns about a product that we're using or the way it's organized, any things to do with the curriculum, I want you to hear that Mr. Verslois, Mrs. Ross, myself, we have an open door. We are willing to listen. We're not going to make everybody happy. We're trying to create product and buy things for hundreds of people, and you can imagine that's not an easy task to make everybody happy. But we're willing to listen, and what we want to do is make sure we get the best product that the majority of our people can be very successful with. So I just want you to hear that publicly. And then I also want to tell you that Mr. Verslois, Ms. Ross have been working with principals, because one of the things that we want to begin doing with you is having conversations about what the discipline data looks like across this district historically and where we're at. And so in order to do that, we believe that the data's got to be right and consistent. And what we've identified is that there's been a lot of inconsistencies in terms of what goes to the office at one building compared to another, or what gets logged in the system from one building to another. So the two of them have been working with their principals. They've come up with some criteria for being consistent across the board. So we know that what's being logged at West is being logged at East and is being logged at Lewis and Clark. And so that when we begin to look at the discipline data, we can be assured that we're comparing apples to apples across the board. So I just want you to hear that that process has begun. We believe we have the criteria in place. And so we're hopeful that at the end of the first quarter, we're going to be able to bring you some data about some historical data from last year, but also this year in terms of where we're at with our discipline data. Just want to bring you an update on that. Okay. Questions?
Thank you.
All
Great
right.
report, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And Jason, we have you again. Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Hoffman.
Jason did, I don't know if you touch on here, he's gonna be doing routes and budget amendment here, and he had given an
Construction
update there on the, with the Facilities Committee. Do you have anything else outside of that line?
So unless there are any questions, I'll yield my time.
Because he's coming up here 2 other times here in business.
Right, absolutely.
From his report standpoint.
Perfect. Okay, we will move forward. Thank you all for that very much. You see, before I jump to future dates, we have a superintendent update. Certainly don't want to skip you.
Absolutely.
And I apologize, I forgot to mention the artwork, which we're always very proud to have in our boardroom, and so I asked Larry if he would mention that.
Absolutely. Cedar Hill, some of their artwork is on display there in the back as they are raising the bar there on both sides. And then here in front from Morrill Heights Elementary, here as well. So we want to thank those folks and our art teachers and our kids for displaying some of their great work and sharing that with us. So if you see those folks, you might thank them. Lori, you can pass that along to your elementary folks and thank them. So, well, during my report, I just want to touch on a few things here. I'm going to touch on, as a district, kind of the JC Strong. As you've seen our pictures that we've had, I touched on those last month. Talk a little bit about diversity in Jefferson City and our goal of working together and some of the challenges, and then our collective action moving forward. Give a little bit of an update on our bond issue, some naming, boundary lines, then attendance, classroom visits, office referrals, we touched on there, and then staff development and appreciation. We had here on the 27th, we're talking about Stronger Together, on the 27th of September. I was invited, it wasn't a school-sponsored event, but at Quinn Chapel, just to discuss diversity in our community and the school's role, and everybody in the room has a role in that, and I do as well. And so that was a good evening, had a lot of good conversations. We have one tomorrow night scheduled. Again, the school's not hosting this, it's at One Baptist Church, is that what it's called?
One in Christ Baptist.
One in Christ Baptist, which is on Jefferson, across from Salvation Army. I believe it starts at 6:30, I think, when I say that. So I've been invited to that. That's a community event, so we want to invite folks to that. So having conversations about things, even if it's ones that folks are uncomfortable, is that's a good thing. That's why I tell my kids all the time, it's a good thing to have conversations about things, and we want to work through this and grow from it. So one thing that I said at the beginning was anything that keeps stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, I'm meaning students, staff, parents, community members. Anything that keeps them from feeling positive about moving this community forward collectively, then we need to have a discussion about it. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm saying, how can we, JCPS as a school district, be a part of something greater than ourselves that is moving forward? How can we develop synergy within and throughout the JC community? I think those are some questions that we ask with as where we are and moving forward. How can we develop that? So I think our job as a school is to work through differences, give all students hope. We say that our mission to give every student hope for a better tomorrow. So give all students hope by helping them determine how and where they will contribute in our community and our society. And we believe that everyone can contribute toward that. So saying we're stronger together isn't just, well, let's, in 2015, that far left photo was in the fall of August of 2015. We said we're stronger together. Then in 16, we said we're stronger together. Here in 17, of course, we outlined JC Strong. Stronger together would take a lot of folks on the field, but you get the idea. But that's what we believe, trying to make that a reality of who we are. And so I've talked about collective action. If you look here in our trying to build something, I've talked about building a barn when I was growing up, and building a hay barn that is still standing, I might add. But a pillar of building something. Here's a book that, looking at again, Built to Last. If you've read the Good to Great books, Jim Collins, and the key things here, building something to last as a school district, to be a premier school district, a clear plan, you monitor progress, and you ignite your folks, the employees. Those are some habits that they say. And so we're trying to kind of model that. So we talk about we are strong together through collective action. I want to touch on what collective action is. Collective action, John Hattie does research of the research. So if you Google John Hattie, he's somebody recognized in the educational world, and all the research that's out there, then he researches all of it to say, what is it all saying? And at the end of the day, there's a long spiel, but in a nutshell, in layman's terms, it's everyone rowing in the same direction. And in the classroom, our teachers, in schools, at home, and the more folks you have rowing in the same direction, the greater of the outcome. The greatest sporting event that I've ever been to was MU versus KU in the fall of 2007. And it was at Arrowhead Stadium, and KU and MU were 1 and 2 in the country. And at that ballpark, 70,000 folks there. Let's say 35,000 MU and 35,000 KU. I don't like KU, by the way. I might just throw that in there. But collectively, there was more synergy in that stadium, regardless of what color you were, regardless whether they were going to go to church the next day or not, whether there's a man or woman or what their age was. After the game, after MU won, I can still remember it. It was one game that I didn't ever sit out. And I remember my wife hates getting cold, and so I remember it was cold and her feet were freezing. And I'm not sure why I'm going into that, but it was a great night. But there was energy there, okay? And there was energy there because there was everybody, regardless of race, regardless of age, it didn't matter. It was, everyone was so excited. Well, what was that one thing that drew, let's say, the MU fans? There was synergy there. And so when we look at that synergy, and I define it as, if you look at Webster, the combined effect is greater than the sum of their individual effects. So, we could do a staff photo before school starts in the gymnasium or at the Miller Center. But no, we went down on the field and we did this of, is there something that there might be more energy coming out of that by everybody getting a JC Strong? That first year, as you can see down there, up from Frank's head there, the J is really heavy, and that's because so everybody just kind of came on the field and they're like, oh great, we got to get in a photo. So that's where it's heavy there, because that's where folks walked in there. And some folks, you said, you're going to do what? That'll be like herding cats. As far as trying to get everybody in line. Well, now we have a JC Strong this year, and how far we've came of being stronger together, and there was energy with that. I believe in raising the bar of what that really means. So when we apply that, when we look at what is that one thing at an MU football game, or is a school district taking a photo? I didn't hear anybody complain this year about the photo. That first year, I heard a ton of folks complaining, and I didn't hear anybody. Of course, you're saying, well, they wouldn't say anything to you, Larry, because they know it irritated you. That's possible. But regardless, there was energy there with that. So taking that same energy, when we have differences with folks in here, in the community, people make poor choices, regardless, working through those differences. So that's what I just want to touch on here. So taking that, Webster would define being bias is a cause to feel or show inclination or prejudice for or against someone or something. Okay, that's how we define bias. So recognizing that biases exist, we must increase culture of competence. Okay, so what is that? In schools, culture of competence is a key factor in enabling educators to be effective with students from cultures other than their own. We all have our comfort zones. We have things that we're more comfortable than others. But we want, from kindergarten students to high school students, from staff to parents to community members, of what that means to have collective action and all towards something. So we've got a pillar that says we're stronger together. What does that mean? So we got some adversity. Well, let's be part of the solution. It's what I'm asking folks. So there are factors that make collective action challenging. Okay, we have some mental health issues in our community, in our schools. Okay, have an awareness of that. And what are we doing about that? Behavioral issues, we've touched on that. We got an update here tonight. Our staff said my first year was the biggest issue that would keep us from becoming a premier model school district, behavioral issues. So trying to work through that. The differences based upon past experiences. We all have differences. We all have experiences. Poverty, having that perspective. I remember my dad saying that everybody needs to go without money at one time in your life, because you have a different perspective with that. And so having that perspective with folks. Parent community engagement, okay? That's talking about a positive, and it is, but if folks, what if they don't want to get engaged? That's a challenge. We can say, well, let's just sit down and talk about it. Not everybody thinks that way. I'm a believer, let's get everybody in the same room and talk about it. Not everybody feels that way. So that can be a challenge with that. So I sent a letter to our staff and to our parents of all of our students here a couple weeks ago on the 21st of September, and basically said we're going to look at demonstrating acceptance and understanding, and look at how we're doing there and what are we doing to move forward. How well we implement our diversity training with our staff, and then parent and community engagement in the areas of race and diversity, and how we're doing and what are we doing about it. So I wanted to touch on a few of those things of what we're doing. So I just want to make a statement, and I'm usually not somebody who does a lot of notes, but there's a lot of different factors in this, I think, as folks know, so I hope you would bear with me on this. But here's something I want to read. This is just my thoughts. I didn't Google it or anything. But while taking the responsibility of the school's role in diversity and developing collective action, we want to move the community from, quote, the school needs to start teaching about diversity, to a deeper community issue about how we can collectively work through differences toward a common goal. Okay, so whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's age, whether it's gender, whether it's values, whatever it is, we all have differences. Okay, there are folks at the stoplight trying to crowd you over. You have differences. That's just life. We recognize that. So it's not just at an MU-KU game. You can go to a Helias and JC game. You'll sense some differences there. And rivalry's good. Okay, that's awesome. Let's bring it. But, still at the end of the day, realizing there's a greater good, and we're here to make a difference in our community. So I'm saying changing America starts with changing here in our community, and then in the state of Missouri, and then in America. Just turn the news on and you'll see that We need to do that in America, so let's start right here. Stop working against each other, but collectively work through differences, give all students hope while determining where and how they can contribute in our society. So that's that common goal. So MU had unification, that there was synergy, ours of all of us giving hope for our kids through how we're going to help them make a positive contribution in our community. And so that's the one thing that I'm asking folks to put differences aside, work through those, and work through all of them. So it starts in our community, and I'm asking folks to join us. So here's kind of our collective action. Now I'll say it's not an 8-step recipe. It's fluid, it's evolving, it's changing, there's different parts of it. We may assess this and we need to tweak that. Well, we hit it out of the park here. Well, we flopped on this. Take responsibility for that. Be open and honest. We got some scheduled dates here I'm going to share with you here in a second. But starting out of believing and living that we're stronger together. Okay, so this started, as I shared there, with the staff photo that we were stronger together. That was in 15. Okay, well, 16, 17, we still believe that. And this will, when you, as my mother would say, when your walls are squeezing in, whatever's on the inside will come out, right? Well, if we really are stronger together, if we're squeezed in things, you face adversity, the core of who you really are, and that's our core, I believe. That stirs inside of me. So believing that, building relationships with all stakeholders. Okay, that's something that, well, let's check this box. We build relationships. That's ongoing. I think we all know. So all stakeholders, so our staff, our community, our parents. We want all of our staff to engage with their kids, not just come on, connect with them. That's what we're asking our teachers. I know through our principals, that's what they're doing. Parents, we're trying to meet with all of our parents. Community members, we're trying to do that. We're inviting folks. So I went to 107 presentations for the second high school. We want to engage with folks, be a part of the process. So we're trying to tackle with the same type of vigor moving forward. Look at resources and supports with the poverty we have. We have a free and reduced at 60% district-wide. Okay, so how are we connecting? How are we with the resources while giving our kids hope who may not have hope, may not have the resources, working through that? Those are some of the things we need to do. The acceptance and understanding that I touched on in the letter that I sent. Through our elementary education, that the character education is embedded in that. Bowling, that's a hot topic, right? Well, bowling is what? Dealing with differences. Okay, so how do we deal with those differences? So how do we teach that? So that's a step toward that character ed, making it real, assessing how well, the fidelity of how we're implementing that, that can make a difference on that. Our diversity training, moving from checking a box to living it, that we value all folks regardless of skin color, regardless of race, regardless of gender, age, you name it. Some professional development through a possible grant of our hiring and examining how we're doing that and doing a better job of it and making that real. Our HR department, Brian touched on tonight, but Brian and Shelby and Brenda looking at the processes for hiring qualified folks that reflect our values and an effort to recruit quality staff that reflect our kids. We talked about the minority percent of our kids, okay? It'd be great if it was. So an effort of that and what that looks like. So they're examining that and having the honest conversations to move forward with that. The parents and community engagement, we had the behavior meetings there a year ago, the boundary lines, 2 high schools, diversity. We've had 2 here that we've just been invited. We're going to host and lead 3. I'll touch on here in a second. But I think overall, just through our AC, our central office administrators, all of our principals, through myself, through our chief of learning, chief of operations, our secondary or elementary or HR, all of our central office folks, having a pulse of what's going on in every building on a regular basis. You can sense that, okay? And just don't stick your head in the sands, and I'm not saying anybody is. For me too. Don't just walk in and say, well, I went here, I try to go to 2 buildings a day. I can go into a quick one, or do I really care? And I think that's just an honest of where are we, to have a pulse of what's going on in our buildings. Is that climate and culture to where that collective action of helping our kids, making those positive contributions in our society. So, got a few more things here, and I mean to get long-winded, but we are committed to helping people contribute. We're asking our entire community to join with us to move forward, work through our differences. So school engaging the community. We have scheduled on the 24th of October at the Boys and Girls Club. They're going to host for us the facility, but we're hosting that, or we're leading that, facilitating it at their facility from 6 to 8 p.m. on the 24th of October. Okay, so we would like to invite our folks to that. The next two we have set the dates as in November 7th and November 8th. I don't have confirmed on the locations. We're looking at the east side or northeast as far as Holt Summit. I know Mid-America Bank, possibly community room there, Hawthorne Bank on the west side, and then we'd have the Boys and Girls Club, so that would be 3 different locations. So those are the dates, the locations that I hope here in the next couple of days we'll get those confirmed, but for sure, we can put on our, you can put all 3 on your calendar if you want to come to all 3, but spread the word, ask folks to be part of the solution with this. So we're asking folks to help us, that we can't do this on our own. It's a school, but it's a community, and we're asking folks to join with us, come up with solutions, work through the differences. And a question that we'll ask is, what can we, as a school district, expect from our parents and from our community? Okay, that's a question I'm going to ask. And here's the thing they can expect from us. What can we expect of them? And ask folks to join us in that process. So that's, before I get on, I want to give an update on the bond issue, some other things I touched on there. Any questions or comments that you'd like to ask or touch on any parts here? Hope I didn't put anybody to sleep.
I don't think so.
Larry, you know, I've always, it's been one of my primary efforts, and that is where our staff is reflective of the kids that we
Right.
teach.
Right.
And I think it's important how we go about doing that. How do we reach that? And I applaud you for at least taking a look at that and how do we actually get there. We can give a lot of lip service, but I like to see action backed into that. I think as a district and as a board, I think that we need to be able to listen more than just talk. I think we need to listen to what those issues are, concerns, where people are coming from, where students are coming from. So I think it's welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'll go on unless you have any other questions or comments. Wanted to, as far as just an update on the bond issue, we had a coffee last Friday, and Carrie Gamford with Architects Alliance was there as the lead architect and gave an update as far as a kind of a timeline, the calendar that we've used, an update on that. Folks were given an opportunity to ask questions. The fall of 19, as far as still the start date that we're excited about, working through that process. A lot of things process-wise of having in place a year from now, which would be then a year out. So when you talk about the hiring, the principal, that's a question that through the faculty council that I'll touch on here, but that's a question that they ask. As far as having that a year out, so then they can plan accordingly for the year. So we'll advertise that position. The plan here is this winter and hire this spring a high school principal for the second high school to start a year from now as far as starting, but having a year out. That's a question that folks ask, because there's a lot of the logistical and the hiring. I've said publicly that we're going to ask our own staff, start internally and ask folks. We have 2 buildings right now. We have Simonson, freshman building, and then we have a 10 through 12. We're still going to have 2 buildings, but they'll both be 9-12. I believe we shared 27 additional teachers that we'll have. But we do have a staff at Simonson. So we're going to ask our folks who would like to go to the second high school. And if there's more folks that want to go, then spots available. We'll look at seniority. If there's some that, hey, but this would be a better fit, hopefully as we continue to work on our culture and climate, if there's a better fit, and have those conversations. But at the end of the day, if folks want to go to the second high school and they have tenure versus a teacher that, or not tenure, has more years of experience, seniority-wise, we'll give the seniority as far as those who want to go to the second high school. So that's that culture and climate. We talk about igniting our own staff, of being difference makers in all that we do. That's something that we believe in. So timeline there, still looking here, January, February, as far as groundbreaking, clearing here this fall. There on 179 at that we own 117 acres. I've touched on many times. So gave it an update on that. With that, any specific questions on that? I know Carrie's not here, but would invite folks to come to our coffees first Friday of each month, 7 to 8 a.m. We invite our community to, and Carrie will be there for an update on that. The naming the second high school, I believe there's a meeting tomorrow, I believe. And am I correct on saying over 1,200 submissions as far as names?
12.
1212. So 1,212 names were submitted for the second high school. So one part of it is, as I see some smiles, like, hey, it's kind of exciting that folks are excited about it. So, that's exciting. So they're going to, through that process, narrow that down. 3 to 5 names, bring those 3 to 5 to the Board of Education, ask for their approval. Once the board approves that you guys would be okay with any of those names, and then making sure that you're all okay with whatever those names might be, and then take those to the community and let the community vote on. So we're excited about that process with that. Boundary lines, Rich kind of touched on there through the facilities committee, but our goal is to have 2 similar sized schools with similar demographics, okay? And you might say, well, that shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. There's a lot of different parts to that. So looking at our boundary lines, we met with the demographer, and he can basically take your schools and where folks live to determine if you have the boundary lines here, what would the enrollment be and what would the poverty be. And so as we've touched on Lewis and Clark and Thomas Jefferson being very, very similar on poverty, since it opened in '93, we want to have the same goal on being very similar. We're not going to have the haves and the have-nots, but having very similar. So working through neighborhoods, traditions, all of that. You have a school, when you look at our district boundary lines, where our schools are located, we have one more on the east side, more on the west side. And when you look at that, is there a line that just goes straight down the middle? There's not. So you got 179 Angles Libby, you got 54 here, you got a river. You don't have any streets that hardly go north and south. And so just working through that while using some common sense, look at something that maybe should have been looked at a long, long time ago, but also understanding there's a lot of emotions with, well, that's my school. I went to that school, and my kid and I bought this house. That's fair and that's right. So working through those. So Jason had a great idea talking with one of his cohorts at another school when they went through the process of asking for volunteers to be on a boundary line committee. And then let's say you had 100 folks, narrowing that down to where you have at least 2 or 3 or 4 from each elementary school. We have 11 elementary schools, so if you had, let's say, 3 from each, there's 33. And then from that, meeting with that, still I anticipate having some community town hall meetings, not to replace the committees of all the work that they will be doing, but evaluating that, asking the questions, asking folks, hey, we're stronger together here, help us out, come up with some solutions. Folks have common sense, they get it. There'll be some that will disagree, there'll be some that whatever you do is awesome, but let's work through that process. So we're excited about that. At the latest, the start of school next year, we anticipate having a recommendation that you guys would approve, hopefully this spring into early summer, asking the board to approve boundary lines, but it won't be, well, Larry came up with something. It will be a community through the committee and a community input process. So, anything else?
The plan is still, though, to generally, with the addition of some tweaks, but generally have the Thomas Jefferson students go to the new school and the Lewis and Clark to Union Street.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that is the starting. And when you look at, as I've shared in here, and I've shared publicly, that Cedar Hill, where the second high school sits, is in Cedar Hill's boundary lines, and that feeds the current high school. So looking at the boundary lines with that, while still keeping the poverty the same, is what we're working through. So there'll be more information to come, but yes, Thomas Jefferson primarily feeding the new high school, and Lewis and Clark feeding the current high school. So, any other questions on that? Good thing you didn't skip my report. You just saved a half hour. Okay, I'll real quick here. So our student attendance we've talked about. Okay, so our attendance through October 4th this year was 95.2%, compared to last year 95.5. So that's 0.3% lower than last year. The Eclipse, as it was awesome educational experience, and the parents that kept their kids at home, great for them. It killed our attendance. So we'll blame it on them. But no, we want to, regardless of that, our attendance is a priority, and so I know through our principals working through that. So I just want to show where we were there. Brian touched on as far as classroom visits and the evaluation system, touched on that, and we're going to be giving a quarterly report here, as in the number of. Won't be doing that tonight, but our next month. And then the office referrals, touched on behavioral wise, comparing to last year of the reporting and how we report that. Student behaviors is one of our 3 focus areas, focus on student behaviors to make sure that we have a positive learning environment while still holding kids accountable. I mean, that's that fine line of working through that process. We had staff development today, they touched on. We had secretarial and support staff appreciation luncheon. Gorgeous day at Memorial Park. We weren't there the whole day, just for lunch. Thanks to Pam and Lorelei and Rich right here for joining us today as board members. And then faculty council. We brought back faculty council, which is basically a rep, a teacher from each of our 18 buildings. And had our first meeting last week. It was awesome. Had a great meeting, something that had been in the district before and had gone away. And so the goal of that is to facilitate collective action in our buildings and represent their buildings. It's not a gripe session. It's about what can we do to move forward. Let's come up with solutions. It's not to bypass. They don't want to talk to their principal, to jump the chain of command. Those, and we didn't even have that issue that folks were wanting to talk. Well, here's everything wrong going on in my building. We didn't have that at all. It was a great meeting. We're excited to build on that. Had our first one last week, so we're excited about that. And I think that's my last thing. Mike.
I know when we developed our streaming of our board meetings, we also had the capability of having a portable one. Would it be possible to stream your Coffee with Larry the first Friday of each month for folks that cannot get there? And that would be another way of updating them on what we're doing and what's happening.
I'm sure that's if we think folks would like that, absolutely.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, if we can do that, I think we can. I think that was the software that we purchased was so we could do things like that. So I think that'd be great.
And I think that may be just seeing how that is received and how it
absolutely.
works. And that way more folks can, you got a lot of families with kids having to go to school and can't get there.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Have a coffee and sit on your kitchen, don't sit on your counter, sit in your kitchen and watch it online.
Or I can watch it that Friday evening when I come home.
There we go, absolutely. Good call.
Great idea.
Joe, can you look into that, please?
After a long day of golf.
Thank you.
That's why we brought the additional equipment,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
it'd be a good use of it. Yeah. Well,
all I
anything
got.
else to add?
No,
Okay,
that's what I got.
that's it. Well, that was a good report. I think that you did a very good job of illustrating the fact that there's a lot of things going on in this school district, and that's always the case, but that yours is a working team, and that there's a lot of different things that you're involved in at any one point in time. So thank you for the good work. Thank you all for your continued efforts. I know it was a long report, but a lot to get through and a lot of important stuff to get through too. So thank you for that. Good. Future dates, you all see the information listed on your agenda down there. I believe that we're finalizing the invitations to the legislators for the day with JCPS, and those will go out, Stephanie, you said tomorrow. So looking forward to that. We have our Board of Education meeting scheduled for November, but before that date comes, I would like to add an item here. If you all would look at Monday, October 23rd, and add that to your calendar. Yes, if we could do that for a special session. I think initially we looked at maybe a work session, but I think we're actually going to have to take some board action there, hopefully. So probably better to do it via a special session. Does anybody have any objections to that date?
I will not be here.
Okay.
I was going to be out of state. I was trying to take vacation, which I didn't get in August. I was going to try to take before our next November meeting.
Okay.
We don't have to do it then. We can, we'll look at some other dates and I'll let Stephanie send tomorrow, some other possibilities, and then notify folks.
Okay. And to, just for clarity purpose, I think you had reached out and suggested that in terms of construction management items, things of that nature, very late last week. So it's a pretty new date, but I'm sure we'll find something that works for everyone, so we can keep looking for it. So
Well, the
thank you for
topic,
that.
excuse me, the
Yes.
topic Jason touched on there earlier, as far as with the, just through that process and just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and so we'll try to come up with a date.
Right, sounds good. We'll get something out to you just in another day or so.
Okay.
And the architects are ready to show some work, so
Absolutely.
that's what we're trying to get on.
Right. Yep.
Is there any way we could try to get the date set tonight?
I'm available on the
Yes.
30th.
That's up to you all.
30th?
That's the next Monday, the 30th.
I'm available now if that works for
I'm
folks.
good.
Yeah, I could do that.
Be good if we get it set tonight. Pam, I agree.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at the
Third-
Chiefs Broncos game.
Chiefs Broncos game. Okay.
Sold out.
I would imagine so.
I don't have tickets.
Sorry.
You could live stream that's there with while you're at the game.
Yeah. Did you take that camera with you?
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
I bet. So Monday, October 30th at 6 p.m. Does that
Do we
work for
have
everyone?
Scott on the phone? Do we know?
Scott? Do we still have him?
Let me
I-
text him.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Can you meet on October the 30th?
October 30th. Let me look at my phone. Hold on. I had you guys on mute. I couldn't figure it out how to get back on the other way.
It's hard to.
Chiefs won Monday.
Yeah, that's very-
7:20.
it's
And
very
there's,
Thinking out
October 30th is
Yeah.
Monday. Yes, I'm good. I'm in chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Send my other stuff.
You're good?
It'll be fine.
Pre-Halloween works for you? Okay, if that's right, pre-Halloween?
Pre-Halloween.
Right up, right on top of All Hallows Eve. Okay, sounds good. Thank you all. I
So we'll need
appreciate
to
it.
check with the architects and Apples, but I'm pretty sure they'll be available.
Okay,
We'll let you know tomorrow.
yeah, okay. So
You'll
we'll
let me
get,
know
we'll
that.
get final confirmation tomorrow, but
Thank you.
everybody have that on their calendars for tonight. I think that's good. Very good. Okay, so moving forward to old business, we've got the construction management at risk contracts, Mr. Hoffman.
I believe it's page 123 is where it starts in your packet. It's been a long process. You know, we are the second school district in the state to do construction manager at risk, so this is new also for us, and I think we've gotten input from attorneys, from insurance people, from architects, and Nabholz has been great to work with. They haven't taken everything we suggested, but if they didn't take it, they were very good at explaining why they didn't think it was good. Pam gave some really good feedback last month, and so unless there's any questions, we'll look for a motion to approve the.
I have a couple of questions, and actually, Rich, this one's right up your alley. On the first contract, which is the 133-209.
Right.
If you go to section 4.1.2, the second paragraph, this relates to, actually, there are several other sections just like
What
this
page
one.
you on? I'm sorry.
I'm
What's the
working off
section
a
number?
different one. It's section 4.1.2. I'm
Around
working off the revised one
170.
that Jason sent, which was page 18 of the revised.
175, Rich.
175? Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
They incorporate language in about the sunshine law, but in this paragraph that starts, owner acknowledges that the professional service rates, yada, yada. But in the third line, it says construction manager's operation president, and in compliance with the Missouri Sunshine Law. I was thinking that and, if it was changed to or, the way I read it, it almost seems like we need permission to give the public documents.
I've actually had a case on this, and
Okay.
there's nothing in this contract that we can keep from the sunshine law, Period.
Okay, period.
period. And, now, it goes back to Judge Brown, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I've also seen litigation that I was involved in years and years ago where items that were copyrighted
Yeah.
were not subject to the sunshine law the same way. We still had to get permission to copy that copyrighted item. And that federal law trumped the state law in that regard. Doesn't mean you couldn't go see it, you just couldn't copy it. Nothing in this sentence bothers me. It will still
Okay.
be public information.
Okay. Thank you, then that resolves about 4 questions then, because we've got the same wording everywhere. The next one is section 5.1.3, unit prices. Are there gonna be any unit prices, or is that just in there?
No.
Okay.
So since they didn't identify any, there aren't any.
Okay.
Okay. If you bear with me, this is two different documents. The other contract is okay, the only question I had on the other one was regarding the cost matrix. It says it's part of the contract, but it's not in the documents.
And I emailed it out today,
Okay.
but it's a part of the
Okay.
contract that I just handed to Steve.
It is attached to the final.
It is.
The signed final.
And it is what they submitted in their RFP.
And we will make sure that that's public record as well.
Yes.
Okay, then that takes care of everything that I had. And I appreciate that some of those other things were added, like specifically the drug testing, so.
Questions for Jason in regards to the contract? Any additional?
Good work.
Yeah. This
Thank
is
you,
a
Jason.
Thank you,
pretty
Jason.
momentous
Thank you,
thing, so
Jason.
then I would look for a motion for approval of the contract as presented.
So moved.
I will second.
Michael made motion. Thank you, Rich. Very good. Quite an exciting thing to call for a vote. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Good, very good. Thank you, Jason, great work.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. We'll get these signed and get them executed.
Fine, I don't think it'll be a problem.
Very good.
Okay, that's,
You've got the next couple of items under new business. Great. I knew you'd be asking everybody.
Put his coat on.
I know. Picking stuff out of there?
I'm trying to decide that. It wasn't supposed to be there tonight. Or, the rain. It sounds like rain. Oh, okay.
Okay, budget amendment. This is the first budget amendment of the year. We usually do about 4 budget amendments. October is usually when we do our first one. The reason that we do a budget amendment now is because we know a lot of things that we didn't know in June when we passed our budget. We know our tax rate. We had a good idea what our tax rate would be, but it wasn't set. We didn't have any real solid assessed valuation data. We've now made our first payroll. For September is the first pay for our teachers. So once we've made that first pay, they're pretty regular the rest of the way, so we can ensure that what we've budgeted for salaries and benefits is accurate or not. We've received our county stock insurance. We received that at the end of August, and that's always a surprise. So that's the reason for budget amendment this time. There's not a whole lot on the amendment. I feel like salaries and benefits are where we would like them to be. Assessed valuation was about what we expected. So the big adjustments for revenues, there weren't a lot. County stock insurance was much higher than we expected, so good news. That's nice that it comes in August and we can adjust. And we have to allocate that based on our tax rate. So because our debt service rate went up more than our operating levy, that's why you see there's $600,000 of additional money going into debt service fund for county stock insurance and only $395,000 in the operating fund. We sold our bonds in July and we received $7 million of premium on those bonds. So accounting for that piece. Then expenses, we finished summer school, so we know where we were with purchase services and supplies. Mentoring, we now know that need to account for Big Brothers and Big Sisters taking over that program. There was a big change in how we have to allocate our Title IIA monies. Before, we only had to allocate a percentage of what we spent on professional development to the non-public schools in the community. That's changed, and now they get a flat percentage of our overall. So we need to allocate $57,000 more of our Title IIA dollars to non-public schools here in the community. An additional $3,400 of our Title IV money will be allocated to the non-public schools. And the funding, the district's funding of ACT is an increase of $20,000, so an increase of $120,000 total in expenses. And then finalizing exactly how the principal and interest is going to work this year on our debt. Overall, a very, very positive amendment to our budget. This shows the summary. So I've added a few lines here. We, in the past, this sheet and the next sheet I'm going to show you didn't match on the balances because this one had always shown our student activity budget, and the other sheet did not. And because those are really not our funds at our disposal, they're allocated. So I've made a restricted balance line, and so then I've also put a restricted balance of what are in the capital projects. You see we have a $69 million balance at the end of the year. Well, $64 million of that is going to be associated with the bond issue. So we know that we have $4.6 million of district funds in our capital projects fund. And then always, when we look at budgets, look at what does it look like long-term, expecting to end the year with a surplus of $750,000, 22.5% fund balances. Going forward, still a surplus the next several years, and the fund balances remaining very stable at about 22 to 23%, so higher than our goal of 20%. It's all in this line right here. The part in the red is the part that we focus on.
Question for you there.
Yeah.
I know that's been a historical number for us. I mean, it was set several years ago, the 20%. Do we still feel going forward that we're confident that that's a strong reserve number? Is that something you think we should look at, revisit again in the future to see where we are? Or are we confident that 20% still gets us taken care of in the event of some unforeseen circumstances?
No, I would say it's probably worth having a discussion about again. Before we had always run the cash flow knowing that we need to keep a 12% fund balance, because what we're talking about are June 30 fund balances, and we have to operate until January before we get 50% of our revenue from property taxes. Taxes are billed in November. A few people do pay them in December, so we get a little bit of money in December. We get most of that money in January, so we have to operate 6 months on this fund balance before we get 50% of our revenue. Well, as now we've increased our levy, so a bigger share of our revenue is going to come from local, and we've increased salaries and benefits, so we're going to be spending more each month. So I think doing a thorough cash flow analysis to see what is that number now. And I can't imagine it's going to be much more than 20, because if it's right. 12 for cash flow and then 8 for just surplus and cushion, that's been the discussion in the past.
Right. Well, you touched on a number of things. The reason I asked that question is it's kind of where
Things
my
have
mind was.
changed.
But
right.
So to me, would you think that be an appropriate item for the finance committee to maybe perhaps take up initially and look at?
Absolutely, good idea.
I'm more than happy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think certainly in light of the major construction we're undergoing, personally, I feel better, I'd rely heavily on the finance committee recommendation, but certainly I would feel better knowing that there's a little more cushion because you never know how costs are going to change in the next couple of years for things like furniture and so on beyond the construction.
Mhm. And within our construction budget, we do have an allocation for furniture, fixtures, and equipment within the 130 million.
We will have a meeting and discuss that.
Good.
Yep.
Move to approve the amended budget.
Thank you,
Second.
Lorelei. Thank you, Pam. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Scott, did we get you on record? We still have you? Aye. Thank you. Very good.
Please.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask.
We need to cut.
Absolutely. Bus routes, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right, every October, by statute, the board needs to approve our bus routes. They're on page 193 of the packet. Just read real quickly the first paragraph of our board policy on school bus scheduling and routing, and it's bus routes, schedules, and stops will be developed under the direction of the superintendent, following procedures set by State Board of Education. The purpose of bus scheduling and routing will be to achieve maximum service with a minimum fleet of buses and to render reasonable and equal service to all eligible students. That is a tough task when you have a school district that looks like that. We have
Jackson Pollock page.
225 square miles that the district covers, trying to get elementary students where they go, middle school students, high school students. You'll notice on the list of bus routes, the number 1 shows bus 1, and then there's a bus 1A. And we have schools that start at various times. The high schools start early, the middle schools start early, we have elementaries all over the board. And the reason for that is because of busing. The first route, bus 1, to run that route has a cost of $38,000 plus fuel. To run bus 1B, to run the second route, has a cost of $2,256 plus fuel. So you can see how efficient it is that we need to do that. So we have 54 bus routes that are listed there. 29 are singles and 25 are doubles. So if we were to take those 25 doubles and make them all singles and all of our schools start at the same time, that would have a cost of about $900,000. And that doesn't count, some of those singles are running a double for ECSE or special ed. So it's a very complex thing. And so especially when you have a district that looks like that, and you can look at the extreme parts of Callaway County, you look at the very extreme west part of our district, we're covering a lot of miles. And we have some routes that run longer than we would like them to. But when a bus route goes 90 miles, it's hard to do that in less than an hour. Also, one of the other things that we have going on is we have Lewis and Clark, Simonson, and high school students riding the same bus. And so we have a transfer point at Simonson. So a lot of the Callaway Hills, they come from Lewis and Clark, go to Simonson, transfer buses, and then go on their way. So you have the list in there, I believe, shows we travel 4,900 miles a day on our buses.
Jason, can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
Simonson does a tremendous job as far
Oh
as
my
with their
gosh,
folks over there.
yes.
If you've ever want to see something in action, is go there about 3:20 It should,
They're gone by then.
No, 2:45.
Be there at quarter to
well, make
two.
sure you guys are paying attention.
2:45.
Better off sending a drone.
They do a great job over there with
They
the
absolutely do.
training and all that.
So you have the list of bus routes, the miles, the times. Be happy to answer any questions. We have Frank Underwood is here. Frank is the location manager with First Student. Frank does an outstanding job, and if you have specific questions about routes, he would be able to explain more, but be happy to answer any questions.
Now, if we were to even, let's say we approve these, looking at this list, it's hard to discern what that actually means. But it's fair to say, right? If there was a student that was having a safety issue, it doesn't show up on this list that we're approving. They would work with someone in the school district and First Student. Would that be how it would be?
Absolutely.
Because certainly, one thing with bus routes, while they're relatively inflexible, we want them to also be safe for the kids that are walking to and from their house, right?
Absolutely.
So if they do encounter something like that, who do they talk to?
They talk to Frank.
Okay.
You typically call me, and I'll just say that 200-300 calls just prior to school starting, easily, and changing routes even after we've sent out postcards and what have you. Parents will call and say, hey, look, this is where the stop is, we live here. As you're looking at a map, and when, Google Maps pins it here, and so we route it there, it may be 200 yards from the house. Henwick Lane is a great example, 179, AA, Summit Drive, no sidewalks. So when they call us up and say, hey, what can we do about this? Not a problem. And we do, our routing system generally routes them door side to try to let them off door side and pick up door side so they don't have to cross the road. We try to pay particular attention to that on those roads that we mentioned. If a parent calls and says, hey, we got an issue here, we take a look at it and we get it changed. I mean, it's not something we're going to say, tough, deal with it. That's not the case at all. If a parent has an issue and it's a legitimate safety concern, then we make the change.
And we bring this back again in June for approval that would have any changes that were made during the year.
I'd like to follow up with what Rich said. Last year, I had a neighborhood just outside the Holt Summit city limits that had an issue with safety. And it ended up working with Jason, with Frank, and even involved the Callaway County Commission to come out and dispatch. They agreed to dispatch sheriffs. They sent out letters because one of the issues was people parking in an area that made it impossible for the bus to turn around, and the piggyback of that. So anyhow, long story short, everybody was very cooperative and the issue got resolved. And I haven't heard from them since.
But not everybody was cooperative. There are some residents that did get
One or two.
That's hard to believe.
Just one or two.
Thank you.
Move to approve the bus routes.
Thank you, Lorelei.
Second.
Thank you, Lori. Additional discussion, points that haven't already been made? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you, Jason. We'll give Scott a couple of seconds. Yeah, apparently.
I can't get off mute fast enough.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Moving forward, Mr. Martin.
Yes,
Contract
sir.
for us.
Yes, I put a brief explanation of this in the board packet in my bullets, but last March, the board approved the voice over IP contract with CenturyLink. That contract, our current contract runs through June of 2019. Since that time, CenturyLink has released new software that runs the voice over IP phone system. So that's the phone system we have here and over at the Dix Road location. And we've had some issues with the current software that we're using. So in order for the district to be able to take advantage of the new software, we have to revise the contract. And so that's what you all have in your packet. It has the same cost that our current contract has. It has the same end date, still goes through the end of June 2019. I will just say, per some feedback that I've got, I've asked CenturyLink if they would change the dispute resolution place court from Denver, Colorado to Cole County. Haven't heard back from them, so I would ask for approval tonight from you all pending CenturyLink being willing to make those changes for us. So it's basically all this contract is doing is giving us the ability to upgrade software.
At the same cost?
Yep.
Okay.
I believe we have confidence that,
They will change that.
okay. Very good.
Well, I
Additional questions?
make it part of the motion. I will make a motion to approve the contract pending change of, let me get that section up here.
Yeah, I've got it here too. It is section 15.5.
15.5A.
Yep.
Did you make a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Pam.
Second.
Thank you, Lorelei. Very good. Stephanie, you good there?
I'm good.
All right,
Pending changes 15.58.
very good. Additional discussion? Points to make? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Very good. Moving on, we've got some MSBA policies that Ms. Murray, as the chair of the policy committee, would like to present to you this evening and discuss.
The policies that are in your packet immediately following the CenturyLink contract are up for first read next month. If you approve, next month would be the second and final read. So I don't know how much you want to go into the policies tonight, or if you want to waive. Almost all the changes are as a result of state or federal law. The policy committee did make one minor change minor change recommendation to policy JO involving student directory. And if you want to pursue the discussion tonight, you can, otherwise hold it over to next month, whatever your pleasure is.
How long is your report going to be next month, Larry?
Shorter.
Very good.
I say we hold it over to next month.
Okay, that would be fantastic. After the policies, there is a document called the Board of Education's Role in Hiring. It's included in there. This is something that the policy committee is going to discuss at its next meeting. This is an MSBA publication that Jason brought to the policy committee. And in general, I think it's a really good publication on what our role is, but we're going to further discuss. It will not be in the meeting packet this month, but we are running into a problem with approving new hires. For example, Jason used the example, if we wanted to fill a custodial position and the interviews were held the day after our board meeting, and then it would take a month before it came before the board in a personnel report, then that potential employee might have to give 2 weeks notice. So he's we're gonna explore looking to see if we can bring forth a recommendation on a way to tighten those timeframes and still meet the requirement for the board to have its due diligence. And that is the end of the policy committee report.
Thank you, Pam. Any follow-up, additional comments?
Do we need a motion to approve the first read?
I think we do.
Okay, I will move.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Lorelei. No additional discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's getting better.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, at this point, I would look for a motion to suspend open session and move into closed. And I know it's either Lori or Lorelei, either one of you all.
I pointed first.
Care to take that up?
Move to suspend open to enter into closed meeting by roll call vote pursuant to chapter 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri, section 1, legal action, causes of action or litigation, and 13, individually identifiable personnel records, and 14, records which are protected from disclosure by law.
Very good. Thank you. Roll call vote. When you're ready, Stephanie.
Sorry, did I get a second?
I need a second.
I'll second.
Sorry, I thought I... Yes, Rich.
Amory.
Aye.
Felicia.
Yeah,
Rich,
yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. We'll be down here, by the way, in the boardroom, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes, so look at 8 o'clock sharp. Thanks, everybody.
Stretch the-
Oh, no doubt.